right. So we are all here today for the community budget town hall presentation. Oh, sorry, got the wrong thing up. So we'll kind of get this meeting rolling here. AJ Tischletter, I'm the president of the board. Hold on, I got to pull one thing up quick.
It's showing the main page.
It's showing I got the presentation up, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I would just like to start by thanking everyone for being here, the board, and community members that showed up. I'd like to thank the board, the finance committee, the audit committee, and the staff on all of their efforts to get this budget proposal put together. So kind of some of the first thing that I would like to go into is, so about a year and a half ago, Long Range Planning Committee implemented a new planning process. The committee adopted using the Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan framework as a means for our Sun Valley Community Plan to follow. This provides consistency with the greater Whatcom County region and the jurisdictions that Whatcom County resides in. As part of that effort, we did the 2020 annual community survey, and that was to start to establish some baseline data on our facilities amenities and the satisfaction with those, as well as starting an ongoing process for involving the community in planning and capital questions so that we can get some input from our community members regarding all of that stuff. As part of that process this year, the board and the Long Range Planning Committee created the strategic planning team. And this consisted of the Long Range Planning Committee, the board, and key staff members as well. And the goals of that strategic planning team this year were to create a new mission and vision statement and establish some new core values, and we developed some overarching community strategic priorities that would help kind of guide and be a framework that will serve as kind of guiding principles for the board and staff when decisions are being made. You can see on the screen here, these are the mission and vision statements that we came up with. And I'll get into the strategic priorities a bit later in the presentation when we go through some of that stuff. And so that was kind of the beginning of this new planning process that we started and we've been implementing over the last year and a half. And there's been quite a lot of work that's gone into that. We'll be looking to push out a 2021 annual community survey here in the next few months as well, in conjunction with the Long Range Planning Committee again. And, you know, we believe that this type of planning process is essential for Sun Valley's long-term community stability. It provides a great yearly mechanism for getting community feedback and input on what we're doing and the decisions that are being made, and it gives us some evidence and some data for the board to make evidence-based decisions off of. So at this time, I'll pass it over to Kim for her opening remarks.
Thanks, AJ. I just wanted to share with the community that the board is really proud of this proposed budget that we put together. And to just give you some context of the challenges that we had to put this budget together, the executive committee had to take over putting this board together from our interim GM who left unsuspectedly at the end of June. He presented to us a budget that was not sustainable, and not reflective of the values of the community based on the long range planning committee. So the executive committee had 2 weeks to turn this over. Many of the people on that executive committee having full-time jobs, not being retired, and having to work tirelessly mornings and evenings, early mornings and late evenings, collaborating with staff to propose a sustainable budget that has a zero balance. So we were proud to put that together in that very brief, short time frame, being handed that task unsuspectedly. And we just wanted to make sure that everyone takes into mind that this budget is solid, it's balanced, and it also reflects all stakeholders. The committee met with staff, department heads to solicit their input. And we also took into consideration the values and the vision and the mission from the long range planning committee to come up with a budget that was sustainable, does not reflect a dues increase, and honors the 7% dues limitation that the community voted on. And we put all that together and presented a comprehensive budget that we feel is reflective of all the voices in our community. And that is something that we should all be proud of. There's no assessment increase for 2022. All of our employees are getting a 3% raise. And we also have just a very comprehensive budget that we feel is reflective of everyone. So I wanted to put that out there and present that to folks, and then hand that back over to AJ. So, and I want to again thank the executive committee and the audit committee for all the time that they put in to make this happen.
I'm gonna pass it over to Joel. We have a kind of a brief ops overview with some charts to go through, and then we'll have Brian give us an update on golf and its projections for next year, and then we'll get into a departmental budget review with Joel after that.
Okay, thanks, AJ. AJ, you want to take your screen off of screen share? Then I'll turn it on my end. Okay. Okay, so everyone can see the budget where it says 2022 proposed budget presentation. I'm actually going to be using this is a version that Joshua spruced up last week, so I'm going to be using his. Then I'm going to switch over to the budget document that's online. I'll show you real quick where that's at, where anyone can pull it up online if they want to. So I'm going to start out just covering the major budget highlights of this thing. So what you can see here is for the 2022 dues proposal summary, you can see that the bottom line is, as Kim mentioned, the dues amount is not changing. So 2021, the dues amount 144.31. Then in 2022, it's still 144.31. The in terms of these operating percent or the operating allocations that come from your one, so the 144.31. So this stuff is what makes up, all this stuff is what makes up, like that's the breakdown of what makes up the 144.31. So you can see the capital dues like the SURF, 3610 this year, 2021, 2022, it's still 3610. We did not change this. Roads 3713, it is still 3713. Mailbox 67 cents. This per month, these numbers that I'm quoting, and still 67 cents in 2022. So the capital allocations are staying the same. In terms of like 2022, the main change is that operation special assessment, that rec special assessment in the SGM So it's slated to go up 3% in 2022, which is what it calls for in that SGM. So it's gone from 11.44 this year, then it'll go up to $11.78 next year in 2022. Now the difference, of course, is 34 cents. And what we did is we adjusted the operations portion of your dues. So this year it's $58.97. Next year it's bumped down $58.63 to compensate for that 34-cent increase between that rec special assessment. Now for the undeveloped lots, the capital allocations for the undeveloped lots are still the same as the developed lots. They're paying the same amount for surf roads, mailboxes. It's just where you'll see the difference is in basically the operations portion of it. So that's where you'll see a difference in the monthly amount of the dues. So the capital, where the undeveloped lots, they paid $134.67 in 2021. In 2022, they will still pay $134.67 per month in 2022. The only change is just exactly like with developed lots. The rec special assessment is going up 3% between 2021 and 2022, and then their ops regular assessment, part of the dues, we decreased that to compensate for that 24-cent increase for undeveloped lots. So that's a high level view of how the dues breakdown is going to be per month. And it's the bottom line is the amount that you pay per month is exactly the same. It's just the allocations are changing just a little between regular operations and the rec special assessment. That's basically it. Now, in terms of, so last year we included basically it was a 10-year chart. All this chart shows is just what we right now anticipate what the dues would look like over the next 5 years. This last year we did 10 years. This year we're doing 5 years because it really doesn't make as much sense to go out 10 years since we're going to have a full level 1 reserve study next year. And then at that point, then we'll get a good idea, a good handle on the capital costs and so on and so forth. So then we'll bring back the 10-year chart next year for the 2023 budget setting cycle when it becomes more applicable to do so. But as of right now, we're not projecting any dues increases as everything stands between 2022 and 2026. The only difference that you'll see is here in 2023 and 2024, the difference is that rec special assessment of $12.13, that expires at the end of, as this document says, at the end of May 2023. And so then 2024, the only difference that we are building into this at this point is just to increase the ops to $70.41 to take into account that the rec special assessment is going away. So then that zeroes it out. But that sort of long range planning for next year when we do the 2023 budget cycle, that's where we'll start addressing, this rec special assessment starting to disappear at the end of, or basically for 2024, like what the real difference would be with that. Okay, so here's a chart that basically, now this is a breakdown. This is showing you your, what this chart is showing you is your dues and assessments. So basically, if you have it for the developed lot, $144.31, over 85% of all lot owners out here have developed lots. So I'll quote developed lots, but $144.31, this is the breakdown of where that dues, what you're paying for of that. So 25% of that capital, this shows you there's a 3610, there's a 3713, operations 5863, and then rec special assessment 1178. So that's just a breakdown with the pie chart of where your dues are going to each month. Now, in terms of for the projected operational income revenue, so basically what this bar chart is showing you is it's showing you the operational dues coming in. So the operational dues coming in, it's going down slightly in 2022. So basically what that is we've decreased it a little, but what we've also done is to be a little more conservative is in 2021, we used a 95% collection rate. In 2022, we're assuming a 93% collection rate. So between the fact that we're lowering dues a little to make up for that rec special assessment increase and also factoring in a smaller collection rate, not too much smaller, but 93% versus 95%. That's why you see between 2021 and 2022, the amount going down because this chart only represents the operational dues coming in. And this smaller bar chart right here represents the rec special assessment dues coming in. So it's kind of the opposite. It's not going to go up exactly 3% because yes, the rec special assessment goes up 3%, but this year we've also factored in like I said before, with the regular dues, 93% collection rate versus 95% collection rate. So that will offset. So it won't go up exactly 3% because that decreased collection rate will then kind of lower it a little, but that's why this is going up here. Now this chart, what this basically is this is a breakdown of the non-dues revenue for your operational departments. This is not capital, this is operational departments. And as you can see, as you would expect, golf and turf care, well, basically it's the golf department, brings in the lion's share of all of the non-dues operational revenue. And then each one of these small little pie slices shows, as you would expect, Marina would be the next biggest one. But then all these other little pie slices show like basically the breakdown of the non-dues revenue of what's coming in. And then if you wanted to know, oh, what makes up common cost 2% that doesn't include dues, then we could just turn right to, which we will here in a minute, we could just turn right to the actual departmental income statement, and then you would see like the revenue section of it. The next chart right here shows basically this is a handy chart because this is showing you what your operational dues pay for. So it's page 11. So I'm going to go back here again. So what this is focusing on is it's focusing on this amount, this $70.41 right here. You know, what all does that pay for, or what does that go to? It goes to these categories. So you'll notice golf enterprise, we still put it on here, but it's sitting at 0. And that's because in the 2022 budget, golf is break even. So since they're break even, your operational dues do not go to fund golf, since golf is in a sense funding itself from the operational standpoint. But this shows you, like if you were to add up the rec, parks, pools, you know, you would, if you added these up, you would see that it was greater than the $11.78. And that's only because recs, parks, pools, that $11.78 is not covering all of their operational expenses. There's still approximately around 11,000 or so with those three departments added together that they could run into a deficit. So the difference is that's what's the difference between 1178 then goes to fund that deficit. Now now at this point, what I'm going to do, can everyone see this where it says, so can you see our mission and we envision? Okay, good, great. So now what I'm doing is I'm now switching to the document that's online. And I think what I'll do here real quick, just so everyone knows, and you can see this web page that I'm looking at. Okay. So anyone who wanted to see this document, probably the fastest way, I mean, you could go to a couple different places, but if you just click the annual general meeting, just that first button here, you click on this, and then the 2022 budget proposal materials, the 2022 budget proposal packet. If you click on that, it'll open up the exact same document that we're looking at right now. So it's going to open up this exact same document. It's also on the link, the announcements for the town hall meeting, but that what I just showed you will probably be the fastest way to go. It's just a couple of clicks. And basically, first part of the documents, the charts are the same. They just don't look as good as how Joshua made them look. It's the same information. So now I'm going to go into the actual, on page 10 of this document, this is showing you the annual dues and assessments revenue worksheet. This is basically just showing you kind of some background of how we get to these calculations, you know, talking about the number of lots, 3,131 billable lots, developed lots, 2,678, undeveloped lots, 453. and rec special assessment. And basically it's building up to the calculations to come up with that 144.31. Down below is like recs, not rec, sorry, but surf roads and mailboxes. Here's the capital portions down below here. And then, so basically, and then this is showing you the revenue coming in only from dues and assessments revenue, not non-dues and assessments revenue. This next page, page 11, this is showing you the budgeted FTEs, and it's comparing it in 2022, comparing it to the budget FTEs in 2021, 2020, 2019. You'll see grand total of FTE count. It remains fairly static especially from last year and the year before. So there isn't really a huge change. As I go into the document, now I do have some asterisks here next to accounting facilities, ACC parks, saying that this has been adjusted to accurately reflect employee roles and departments. Basically, those are any areas where we've shifted some FTE counts around. Now, I'll just go into the document right now, and that's when I'll address any like FTE counts between departments. So what we're looking at here, starting on page 12 of this document, this is showing you the actual budget itself. So you've got the budgeted 2022 budget, this column here, budget change, showing you 2021 budget here. The actuals from the previous years is 2021 year to date actual. There's a note that says this is actuals or as of May 2021 at this point. That's in this document. And so now I'm going to run through the whole operational budget. It won't take very long. It'll be, I'll have it. And what I'm going to do is I'm only going to focus on important changes. Is what I'll focus on, material changes. So I won't focus on something that, oh yes, I went up, like, here's a perfect example. We won't focus on this, even though it went up 110%, but you see it only went up $550. So we won't talk about stuff like that, or something that went up 1,000%, but then it changed $1,200. We're only going to hit on the material changes for 2022. Any changes that are really all that important. Okay, so on the common cost page, this is where, in case you're wondering, this is where the regular operational dues comes in, like into the income statement that you see every month that are posted online and on the budgets. So here's if the dues were at 100% collection rate, that's what it would be, 2.169 million. This 151,863, this negative amount, this is building in the anticipated 7% that we won't collect in 2022, the bad debt, so to speak, which is done every single year. So this, in 2021, this amount is lower because we are anticipating a 95% collection rate, so 5% will go bad, so to speak, that will be uncollectible during the year. 2022, now we're saying 7%. Now it's just a matter of just being more conservative. Now it could come in at over 7%, like in terms of last month. So like at the end of June 30, 2021, our actual collection rate year to date was 94.5%. In June of 2020, it was 93.9%. And now at the end of 2020, so 12/31/2020, we did finish out the year at 95.5%. Now I've calculated the collection rate already for July. So year to date in July, we've held steady at 94.5%. At July of 2020, we were sitting at 94.6%. So we are in a good shape, like we are in the running to possibly finish out the year at around where we finished out last year, 95.5%. So, but any percentage that we come in over, or any, if we came in at 94% versus 93%, then that could be approximately another, I don't know, we'll say around 24,000 or so, like additional revenue coming in, as you could think about it that way, which could help out. That would help out the bottom line as opposed to what's budgeted. So now I'm just going to go on and I'm just going to hit any sort of like, yes, AJ.
Could you go to maybe golf and do golf first? Brian has an obligation that he needs to get to, so I want to be able to allow him to do that.
I'll go
And
to
I want
golf.
to give him a chance to speak on, after you go over the golf budget, to speak on
Yeah,
his. Thank you.
sure. Yeah. I'll just quickly touch on so basically, there are only a couple things that I'll mention with golf. The big things with golf is you'll see that golf revenue has gone up 9.17%. We're budgeting 9.17% increase in revenue because Brian feels, looking back and forecasting, that that is a very attainable revenue to come in at. Advertising costs. See, I violated my own rule. Yes, went up 29%, but that's only $2,900. So forget about that number. That's not really a huge material increase. The only real difference in terms of going from 0 to 5,400 would be website maintenance. Of course, golf has its own website that they maintain. What I'm going to do now, when you look at the income statement every single month, you'll notice that I don't say golf and then turf, because it's always talked about as golf enterprise, because golf can't operate without turf. So those two are commingled together, consolidated, so to speak, on the income statement. So in terms of like the turf care portion of golf, so the golf is where you're going to see all the revenues come in for the golf enterprise. And then turf care is a cost center, since turf is maintaining all the greens out there. Okay, now with turf care, the one material difference that you'll see is in 2022 that their turf care's payroll expenses goes up by 11.45%. And then if you're wondering, well, why would that be? Of course, now when I was talking about the FTE charts, this is one area to where in 2021, the turf manager, 50% of Jacob's salary, in that case, 50% of his salary was expense to facilities, and then the other 50% was expense to turf. Now we've realigned that a little. So now in 2022, 85% will be in turf. That's basically what's driving this 11.45% increase. 85% is now pointed at turf, and then 15% will then go to parks. So it's not that anything has been added in terms of in total to the organization. It's just a reshuffling of the FTEs. One item that we did is talking to Brian, we did pull this line item down a little, the equipment repair and maintenance line item, just looking back at, especially in 2020. And Brian feels that that is an appropriate number to plug in. So it's decreased to 9.12%. But with that, I could turn it over to Brian, who wanted to talk about the direction of golf for 2022.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. So I just wanted to give a quick update on mostly on the revenue side. It originally, yeah, thanks, Joel, if you can get it back up there. Originally, I had budgeted right around $1 million for revenue in 2022. However, one of the benefits of the little bit of the delay that we encountered in budgeting was that I had more months of 2021 to help me make a better prediction. It's always one of the challenges in budgeting for golf is that we basically need to come up with numbers in May, which is just the very beginning of our golf revenue season. So it's always somewhat of a crapshoot to budget revenue, but by the fact that I was able to make adjustments all the way into late June and even I think early July, I was able to see where we were year to date, which is very healthy. We are running a little above 15% ahead of budget this year. So if we simply match budget for the remainder of 2021, we will actually even get a little bit above this 1.039 million that I've budgeted. And our trend this year has been exceeding every month revenue wise, and July, even before, I made these predictions or these estimations before the end of July, and July indeed was another month where we exceeded budget by a significant amount. So I felt really comfortable making this increased forecast on revenue, which will allow us to break even on golf. So I'm very comfortable with forecasting a net zero operational effect on the budget with the golf enterprise. So it just was a little bit of the update that I wanted to throw at you, and just to elaborate a little bit on what Joel touched on as well with the turf care superintendent. Jacob was very involved outside of the golf department, and his successor, Jeremy Galvin, we don't expect him to have the level of involvement outside of golf and parks. So that's why we made that we made the adjustment of putting more of his salary back into golf. So we had the body count hasn't changed, but we are going to allocate more of Jeremy's salary back to the golf enterprise, because we just don't see his involvement being as robust outside of golf. And that may change. It changed for Jacob. Jacob wasn't always that way either, but he evolved into being much more involved outside of golf. And that may well evolve over the years for Jeremy, but we don't expect it in 2022 to be significant. So that's why that change was made. And with that, I'll leave, and I'll just, but AJ and everybody, thank you for letting me jump ahead of the schedule a little bit. I appreciate it. I'll still be listening on my phone. So with that, I will mute myself.
Thank you, Brian.
Brian.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
I'm just I'll turn it back up now to where we left off in common costs. There are only really just a couple in common costs in terms of material changes. You'll see this amount, real estate property tax, and we're just pulling this in line with property tax payments and anticipated payments for 2022. Same thing with insurance premiums, just talking to the broker, pulling it in line with what we could possibly see happening in 2022, an increase in insurance costs. Now for the accounting department, just a few changes. I mean, title and recording fees went up. This is a revenue element. Title and recording fees went up $10,000, and this is just going back and looking at what it has been in prior years, and the fact that we also have quite a few in terms of like the property development and stuff going out there is doing really well in Sudden Valley. Okay, payroll service fees, same thing, not a huge change, but just pulling it in line with what our fees have been for payroll servicing as well. Now, here, like in terms of audit and tax services, basically what's fueling this change is just, as I mentioned before at the beginning, in terms of going out and doing a level 1 reserve study for next year. So we're building in anticipated increased costs for a level 1 reserve study, which is paid out of this line item right here, audit and tax. Okay, so now in terms of like salaries and benefits, here's another category where we talked about in terms of Jeremy's role being realigned in turf. It's the same thing in the past, and for the 2021 budget to the collections manager, excuse me, the collections, Angie, the collection specialist. So 3/4 of her time is billed to accounting. The 1/4 of it is billed to the ACC department, or allocated to ACC department. So we're realigning that for 2022 and just putting 100% of her time to accounting, and then not allocating any of her time to the SEC department. And then we've also, this is the one department where we've added half an FTE for a part-time accounting position for support. And so that is also increasing. That's also lending into the increase of the cost. However, on the other side of that, we do have other professional services. And in past years, other professional services, this is where temporary accounting help would be paid out. And so we've zeroed this out, since there's no need to do that, since now the person is on staff at this point. So that's that's also compensating for that somewhat. Now in the facilities department, the big real change for facilities is going to be in payroll, and you'll see a decrease of 52%. And of course, we've already talked about this in terms of Jacob's time. Half of his time was allocated to facilities. Now that 0.5 FTE of Jacob, of the turf manager's time, has been removed from facilities. And now the turf manager is 85% turf, 15% in parks, but that's what's really behind this decrease of salaries in facilities. Okay, IT services decrease of 8,000 in 2021. Now we're saying 0 in 2022. This just comes down to a maintenance connection software package that we have determined is we're not using and we're not renewing in 2022. And that just clears that up in terms of that cost. Now we've already covered golf, so we'll skip past golf. Now we're into the rec center. And if you're wondering in terms of that rec special assessment, where could you see that on the financial statements, the departmental statements? This is where you would see it. So on the rec community center income statement, departmental income statement, it comes in here, and this is what this is. So same thing for rec. If we had 100% collection rate on that assessment, that's what we would get, 423,572. This 29,650 is anticipated uncollectible amount, which is that 7%. That's behind that 93% anticipated or forecasted collection rate. So if collection rate is higher, then the net amount is here, 393,922. If the collection rate is higher, then this net amount will become higher too at the end of 2022 or throughout the year. Okay, in terms of salary, so you do see a decrease in salaries of 5%. And this really comes down to just current payroll rates that we're using. So it's just, when I put these together, I look at what are the exact rates. And now, as Kim mentioned in the beginning, what's also built into all of these payroll numbers is the current rates as they are, and then increased by 3% anticipated for 2022. So that is also baked into all of these salary numbers. Another thing that I'll point out too, so you'll see the payroll medical benefits on every single one of these departments. It'll be the same for the most part. It's increasing by 8.44%. And what this is just anticipating like information from the broker, what the medical benefit increase could look like next year in terms of the current medical payments that we're paying right now. How much of an increase could we see? This 8.44% builds into that and for an anticipated increase for 2022, much like how we did for regular insurance premiums as well, that you saw up in common costs. In the maintenance department, same thing. The only real increase is for payrolls is the medical premiums that was discussed, that I just discussed. Now, in terms of also for maintenance, another change would be weather response payroll. Now, in a previous budget version, we had more than this, but what we did is we decreased this to 10,000 for weather response payroll. What we're doing is we're anticipating, we're mirroring, just to be conservative, what our snow response in 2021. So we felt it was prudent just to budget at least as much for the snow response in 2021. Now, in 2019, they did a transfer out of UDR for snow response. In 2020, that we didn't do a transfer for that. In 2021, we didn't do a transfer for that. So this 10,000, just to put an amount in there to basically to cover the 2021 snow response, we felt was a prudent thing to do. Going into the Marina Department, the main increase here is going to be in the Marina income. And this is just, it's going to be for all these wet slips. What we're doing is we're building in an increase of the rates of 10%. Since all the slips are always running out all the time. So we felt that 10% was adequate to build into a rate increase for that. Same thing with salary, medical benefits, just increase in rates for medical premiums. Admin is the most uneventful in terms of like any sort of real material increases, but really the only one that I'll highlight is just recruiting expense. We're just increasing this to 6,500, just looking back over what we spent in previous years here. And recruiting expenses where you would see things for basically for onboarding people like drug test screening and so on and so forth. For staff members as they come on board. Okay. Okay, so for parks, you'll see an increase in parks here. And basically this is what an increase, the thing that's driving this is now we've, as I said before, for the turf care manager, 15% of his time is now being allocated to the Parks Department. That was not done last year or the year before, but now this is being done this year. That's what's largely driving this. And also just what the current rates for park staff and 3% being built in as well. But all departments have that 3% built into it. Okay, so basically, there really isn't that much in terms of for the pools, but there is a decrease here of 50% for main pool income, 11,000 budget in 2021, decreased it to 5,500. And that's just simply just looking back at prior years and pulling it more in line with expectations for income. Now, another item for pools. Is going to be right here in terms of the pool management line item. So what we're planning to do for 2022 is renegotiating these pool service contract fees, and we feel that these can be successfully renegotiated to pull this down. ACC security, one big line item to bump up is the new home construction fees. And in terms of, because construction is, of course, just doing really well out here in terms of new home builds. And this is just essentially the 75,000, I mean, possibly even could be conservative in terms of, as you see, just looking back, especially 2018, 2019, over 100 grand for each one of those years. 2020 was lower, obviously, because of COVID shutting everything down. But $75,000 is a conservative number, but this number definitely we felt should be increased to match the reality of constructions. You'll also see an offsetting amount to also go back to hazardous tree removal. On a previous budget version, we did originally have this down to 50,000. Someone expressed concern that maybe that was not, maybe that we should restore it back to 60,000. We agreed, and we've now restored it back to 60,000 to match the budget for 2021 for the hazardous tree removal pruning amount. Okay. Now here's where, in terms of for payroll, where you'll see 108,000 or 2021, now it's decreased 46,000, decrease of close to 60%. ACC security is another department where where FTE changes have occurred. So the ACC security manager FTE that was one FTE, so that has not been rebudgeted for 2022. So there is a decrease of one FTE right there, and then you also have a decrease of 0.25 FTE from the collection specialist, and then that 1.25 FTE has been realigned back to accounting, and that's really what is driving this decrease for salaries for security. So it's a decrease of 1.25 FTEs for this department. Even though medical benefits is going up, in this case now it's for the department as it is, it's going down, since also like with Angie's, who's the collection specialist, then 0.25 of her medical benefit cost then also gets realigned back to accounting. So whenever we shift an FTE from one department to another, then the medical benefits associated with that FTE also shift to those departments and affect the medical benefit cost. One other area would be the ACC consultant, which does the building inspections and so on and so forth. That's the offsetting component, basically this new home construction fee right here. But we have now increased this to 50,000 to anticipate ACC consulting fees, especially going back and looking at prior years. 50,000 is a conservative estimate. Of course, whenever you have a fee in ACC consultant, then you also have corresponding revenue amount as well that I've highlighted. So those two are linked. And then the last word I'm going to talk about, but we've already talked about it, is turf care. And then if you scroll past the turf care page, like if you wanted to know from an all department summary, starting on page 42 of this document, basically when you see these GLs right here, any GL, what it's doing is it's adding up any department that has that GL, it's adding it up and summarizing it for you. So it's like you could see the all department summary on these pages. So if you wanted to know what is the total maintenance and landscaping cost, or the total cost for, for raw materials for the whole organization, you could just look on this page. It's going to take those same GLs from any department where that GL shows up, and it's going to summarize it on these pages. But that, now the rest of this course, it goes into SERP planning. So with that, I'll hand it back to AJ, I believe, at this time too. Is it going back to you, AJ?
Yep. You want to stop your share screen and I'll pull up. All right. Can everyone see that? So, like I said in my introduction, we implemented a new planning process over the last year and a half with the Long Range Planning Committee and the Strategic Planning team. And, we believe that this approach will provide the community successful long-term organizational stability and sustainability. And it provides the community multiple avenues of which to give input into the planning process to help us make decisions that the community would prefer. And as I stated above, we developed a new mission and vision statement, which I had on the screen earlier, and then some core values that go along with those. And then we developed some overarching strategic priorities, which is what I will get into here. So the first strategic priority that we identified through our mission, vision, and core values was sustainability. We're obviously looking to manage our human, natural, and financial resources to meet the needs of the community. And some of the things that we have going on in our capital planning and our budget planning for 2022 to help us meet that goal. We intend to do an updated road and drainage capital improvement plan The current one does not really outline what roads we're going to be working on and when, and the deficiencies that we actually have in our roadway network and drainage network. The drainage plan is a bit more comprehensive in this capacity, identifying specific culverts. Our road plan just basically says main roads or secondary roads, and that does not provide the community kind of a plan of when they can expect work to happen on their road. You know, if they're seeing issues on their road, then, you know, they look at our capital plan and they just see main roads and they're like, well, what does that mean? Is my road a main road? Is it a secondary road? You know, and most jurisdictions actually put in their capital planning exactly what roads they'll be working on. You know, and with the local jurisdiction government, they usually have like from milepost to milepost and those types of things. So we'll be looking to bring an engineer on board to help us build a new capital improvement plan that focuses on a comprehensive look at everything. It includes our drainage issues along with our road issues, and our striping needs and any signage needs we may need. To be able to address those in a comprehensive and cohesive manner. Southern Court has had some issues over the last couple years. We had a big slide out there last winter, and currently Southern Court is closed at the moment. They're doing slope stabilization work on there, doing some rock bolting, and they'll be doing some shotcrete to help maintain the integrity of that slope so more things don't continue to slide off. There will also need to be some additional repairs to that. There's going to need to be a little bit of drainage improvements that need to happen as a result of the work that gets done, and we'll be looking to put some concrete barrier up along the slope side to help catch any future things that may slough off. But with the shotcrete repairs, we shouldn't expect to see much material coming off of the slope at that point. And then there is obviously some needs for some asphalt repairs up in that section of roadway as well. Some of the road's been damaged from things falling off, and just a lack of maintenance over the years. We're obviously going to continue to implement the Firewise and Clean Green programs for the membership. These are Jacob, before he left us, he had put together and the board approved a work plan for the summer and the spring months to do some of that work again. And we'll obviously keep those programs moving forward. They're important for the community to be able to shed some of the vegetation and stuff that comes down on a yearly basis from their individual lots. We're always looking to gain an understanding of what our impacts are in the watershed and climate, and be good stewards of our collective drinking water source. Part of the things to address some of that is we obviously have a number of bridges here. And those things need to be inspected on a rotating schedule, usually every other year. And some of our larger culverts or fish passage culverts as well. We have a required stormwater mitigation project that the county has required us to do as a result of, I believe it was the repairs done on Marigold Drive. Oh, it was a few years ago now. I don't remember the exact year off the top of my head right now. I think it might have been 2016 or 17 that occurred. And that has been delayed a bit. It was not built as a part of the project. And so we do have a requirement from the county to address that before the end of next year. We also have money in our capital program for, unforeseen drainage issues that pop up. These types of things always happen in Western Washington. We get a lot of moisture over the winter. You know, and flooding things can be an issue. And so we do have some on-call engineering money in there for anything that comes up in that regard. We have a number of culverts that are going to be removed and replaced. Culvert 432, culvert 25, that's all in relation to the capital drainage program. Those numbers are identified by the consultants. That's how they inventoried them and inspected them. We also have 2 culverts that were planned for this year, but are not able to go. They're hung up in permitting and utility relocate issues that we're dealing with. And so those are already obligated funds, so they're not included on this list, but the construction will be happening next year as a result of those. And as from our 2016 special general meeting, the membership approved an annual vegetation control. It's called, you know, a lot of times in our documents referred to as the CVC program, culvert vegetation control. And that'll be continuing to move forward, cleaning out culverts, you know, fixing ditches and stuff that are not flowing properly, and dealing with that type of stuff. Part of sustainability, we're also looking to conduct our business in socially and fiscally responsible manners and consider the true cost of our decisions and our actions. We don't have an assessment increase plan for 2022. The community has obviously seen some substantial increases over the last few years. And so we're not planning on anything like that. And as Joel discussed a little bit earlier, we are looking to build a new level 1 reserve study for our 2022 budget and planning process. The current one that we have has a bunch of large scale building replacement projects baked into it. And the true point of a reserve study is as a maintenance plan for our buildings, so that we can adequately plan and prepare replacing or repairing components of these buildings like HVAC systems, you know, paint, siding, roofing, plumbing, electrical, those types of things. And so we'll be looking to build a new level 1 reserve study with a consultant that we bring on board. And that'll help give us a complete understanding of what our assets that we currently have will cost to maintain over the next 10 and 30 years cycle. So the second strategic priority that we established was collaboration. We are obviously a collaborative community. We feel our members are the heart and soul of the community. They are the ones who pay the dues, and we are the ones, you know, who move here and want to live here and kind of make the whole thing work, essentially. You know, we have some safety stuff that goes with that. Defibrillator replacement is on the reserve study to be done. We want to make sure that we have those types of things available in our buildings. We can continue to strive to build collaborative and ethical decision-making into our budgeting and planning processes. We, as Joel stated and as Kim stated, we have a 3% pay increase built into the budget for employees. We have golf presenting a balanced operations budget, and we are looking at making sure our maintenance staff has proper office accommodations for those employees. The current shop is not exactly adequate for, you know, employee. It's a shop, it's not an employee office place. We are a compassionate community, and the well-being of everyone is a top priority. You know, and all people and living things should be treated with respect. Part of that, we have the Marina Park and the dog park has had, I think it was last year, there was a new policy approved regarding the Marina Park and the dog park, and providing some separation between the dog park and the rest of the park. You see this type of stuff typically at any sort of dog park. The third strategic priority we identified was natural beauty. this is something that we saw in our survey repetitively. It was something that came up in the written responses constantly as one of the big reasons why people love Sudden Valley is the natural beauty, the trees, the wildlife, all of that stuff. You know, we believe it is our duty and in our self-interest to be strong guardians of Sudden Valley's natural environment. And this is making sure we're conscious of our impacts on our surroundings and how our impacts blend in with our surroundings as well. Part of the natural beauty that we hope to address is the rec corridor has been in disrepair for maybe 5 years or so now. We've had fences around foundations and around barns, and we're really looking to, you know, rehab that area and do some much overdue maintenance to those facilities. You know, part of that is the dance barn and barn 8, looking at an exterior rehabilitation of that. And, you know, replacing siding that's gone bad, any roofing, windows, doors, that type of thing, really shoring up the outside of that building, so that the interior can then be, you know, looked at and work can be done there. Removal of the barn 7 foundation. I think everyone can agree we're tired of looking at a fence with a concrete pad and a bunch of rebar sticking out. And so, you know, doing the work that needs to be done to remove that foundation and deal with that. New road mowers in our reserve study and our capital planning. We believe that mowing the sides of the roads is the first thing everyone sees when they come to this place. The first place you go when you come here is you drive to your house. And we hear a big difference of how people, even real estate agents or anybody, views our community when they come in and they don't see weeds on the side of the road that are 4, 5, 6 feet tall. You know, and so, you know, making sure we have the proper equipment to get that type of work done. We also recognize the effects our environment has on the lives of our residents and employees. Part of that is in the clubhouse, we've had some AC issues. And so the HVAC unit, there's one that is new and that was done in 2019, I believe, but there's 2 units that service that building. And one of them is, I think, over 20 years old now at this point. We'll be looking to replace that one. And that'll help remedy some of the issues that have cropped up. The next strategic priority that we identified was recreation. We believe our parks, trails, green spaces, we have pools, lakes, a golf course, a fitness center, and the recreation community center. We have programs that, you know, not so much with COVID, but we'll be getting back into that stuff more and more as we come out of this, that everybody loves to enjoy here. You know, some of the opportunities we've recognized, we have a waiting list for kayak and canoe racks. So we're looking at some additional kayak and canoe racks, and how that can increase some of our revenue stream that we bring into our recreation department. The sauna in barn 8 has been in disrepair for, I think, a couple of years now. And so we'll be looking to replace that. The golf course has 4 mowers that are coming to the end of their useful lifespan, and we'll be looking at replacing that. And then the ice barn is a space that, you know, we have some money set aside to figure out a plan for that, and, you know, look at ways we can add some additional recreation opportunities to that area with a covered, you know, recreation space. Is how it was previously used in the past before it got turned into kind of storage of maintenance and other miscellaneous things. And so we also look to provide recreational opportunities that are accessible and inclusive to all of our residents. We obviously have a wide array of different people who live here, from, you know, single people to families to retired individuals. And so we want to try to provide, you know, access and opportunities that are inclusive of everybody. Something we'd like to start to put a plan together for is a connected trail system that can allow our community to move through the various gates and areas without having to use our road shoulders. I know sidewalks are always something people talk about. The feasibility of sidewalks is very limited from an engineering standpoint and fairly unpractical from a cost and maintenance standpoint. And so being able to build a connected trail system that can get, gate 5 and gate 28 through gate 9 and 13 and pick up those people and get everybody down to the marina or the rec corridor, or the golf course or AMPM beach, those things is something we'd like to start to plan out and implement. We have money set aside to reconfigure the marina parking lot. There is a lot of space there that is not best utilized, and we feel like we can maybe do some minor reconfiguration with that to be able to create more spaces. We have a long wait list as well for wet slips and dry slips. The practicality of adding more dry slips at this point into the lake and the drinking watershed are limited by the county's restrictions and the Fed's restrictions coming from the degraded water source. But adding some additional dry slips and stuff can materialize some additional revenue streams for the marina and bring in more revenue. And then the sidewalk alternatives, I address sidewalks in particular, which people think of, concrete sidewalk like you see in the city of Bellingham. Maybe that's feasible in certain sections of road where we have the appropriate right of way and stuff like that, but maybe some alternatives that could be addressed. This would be coinciding with our roads capital update that we would be doing and looking at some of those areas. Maybe our connected trail system can get us to a certain point to a road, and then we need to have like some sort of wide gravel shoulder or additional surface. Maybe it's paved, maybe it's gravel. You see this on like the Lake Louise Trail. We utilize a section of Marigold Drive to be able to connect the two ends of the trail. And we think making sure that coincides with our road resurfacing program gives us economy of scale. You don't have to pay multiple contractors to come out to do what equates to the same type of work, those types of things. And so we want to start to look and build that into our capital planning. Another strategic priority we identified was civic engagement. We've obviously seen an immense amount of people participating over the last few years, coming to meetings, talking to the board, all that stuff. With COVID, we've seen a little bit less, but we believe people are still there. They're still paying attention. They still want to be heard is the big thing. And we want to work together to protect our shared values that we all have. So we strive to have all of our meetings live streamed or viewable on YouTube if they're recorded and then put up after the fact. This allows our members to participate on their own schedule. We don't believe that you only have a say if you're on a committee or on the board. People should be able to participate when they're able to. And that's part of the survey and all these other mechanisms that we have of communicating with community members. We obviously have the views, and we do, which is a monthly community newspaper that we do. We also have various forms of communicating through e-blast and text message and announcements on our websites and social media and those types of things. And so I encourage everyone to go to our homepage and sign up for the e-blast. It goes out weekly. It can provide you weekly updates on things that are happening, either events, road closures, anything that we feel the community needs to be aware of. We want our community members to be engaged and informed, and our employees actively contributing to the community decision-making process. Things we're implementing for that, or we have our annual survey that we put out last year. Like I said, we're getting that ready again for this year. Our staff has all staff meetings. They've done some of their own kind of strategic planning meetings and discussing discussing some of their core values and things like that, and staff training. As part of our strategic planning process, like I said previously, we had our department heads and key employees participating in that, so that we, come to a consensus between all of our stakeholders on how to move things forward. And we obviously have an open door policy with the board. Anyone can email us at bod@suddenvalley.com. And we're always looking to get community feedback and is embraced and considered. Part of that is we're looking, Josh in the communications committee has been working with John behind the scenes this year to implement some website redesign. We do get some complaints that it's a bit cumbersome because we have a PC version and a mobile version. And so we'd like to bring a bit more user friendliness to our website and be able to provide, more information easily available and easily findable on our website. That can limit, some questions that people have. It can allow the board and staff to steer people to documents that have been created, reports, by engineers or blah, 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 those types of things. And then, obviously the annual survey again. Another strategic priority we identified was quality of life. And we believe that the quality of life is important to our membership and our staff and the community as a whole. And we look to protect that through our relationships, our bylaws, our policies and procedures. Some of the quality of life things that are needed, Barn 8, which is the dance barn. We have some additional maintenance work on the interior that we'd like to accomplish, fire suppression systems, some plumbing repairs. Some of those things could provide us the ability to rent those spaces a bit more and provide some additional revenue streams for the association. We also have plumbing system repair for the clubhouse. And we're working to collaborate with Whatcom County on stormwater mitigation projects, which is, we have the one that we're required to do because of our Marigold Drive project. We're also, at our last meeting, we have Whatcom County Public Works Stormwater Division there to speak with the board. And they are, actively looking for projects. One of them is, proposed at the moment is on Marigold Drive. And they're, as most people, I guess, may or may not be aware, the county created a new stormwater utility fee that we all pay into. Sudden Valley as a whole pays a significant portion of that amount of money that is taxed on all residents of the watershed that are within Whatcom County's jurisdiction. And so, we're looking to partner with Whatcom County to ensure that Sudden Valley receives, benefit and support for the tax dollars that we're all paying as individuals, and our association pays into that fee as well, because we have association-owned parcels. We're also, we believe, livability and a sense of belonging are required elements of a sustainable community and a collaborative planning process. Fiscal responsibility and prudence help deliver services and maintain the resources our community needs and desires. Providing an operational budget that is balanced, and provides a consistent and ongoing support of those services that we're already providing to the community, we feel is important. And really looking at our, we get a number of complaints about potholes and conditions of roads. As I addressed earlier, we are looking at bringing an engineer on board here in the short term to help us develop a new capital program and make sure we address all of these concerns. I personally have driven around on a number of roads that are falling apart and they need to be fixed. I think a number of people who live between Harborview and Sudden Valley Drive and Gate 3 may be able to appreciate that. There's a number of roads there that are just kind of crumbling apart. And the last strategic priority we identified was diversity and inclusiveness. We believe we just need to be a community that values our differences and creates a welcoming and inclusive environment and encourages innovative ideas and increases participation and an elevated sense of community for everybody. part of that is we discussed through a number of things, providing diverse recreation opportunities for all generations of people, connected trail system that can, that meets certain standards as far as grades and type of surface that we use and those types of things to help get people out and about. And obviously we're always looking to use graphics and different tools and enhance the readability of Sudden Valley's materials that they put out either on the website and e-blast. And those things are always a work in progress. We can always improve as we move forward from year to year. And that is kind of the last strategic priority that we identified. It goes through most of our capital and our budget concerns or budget objectives that we use to kind of meet these various components that we put together. So I will stop sharing at this point in time, and that kind of concludes staff and the board's budget presentation at this point in time, and we would open it up to community members for any sort of Q&A process that they may have.
Yeah, we do have a Q&A, and there is actually a question that is posted into the Q&A, which was just, will there be time for questions? So it looks like person who posted that has stepped up. It's Rob Gibbs. I'll go ahead and bring you over to the meeting, and you can unmute at this time.
Go ahead, Rob.
Sorry, Rob, we can't hear you. Oh, looks like he's connecting.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Oh, good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a great summer. I have a question about the marina income. My question is that in regard to collaboration, when the decision was made to suggest a straight 10% increase in the wet slips, did you have a chance to talk to any of the tenants about any of the other ideas that they might have in regard to that?
There's not a straight increase, and that decision, first of all, we talked with Andrea, who's the manager out there, and then we also looked at the wait list, and it's a matter of working to reconfigure that lot to determine how many additional slips we might be able to free up. There's no set amount of what that is.
Well, my understanding was that is in the budget for next year, it'll be a straight 10% increase in the wet slips. Increase in fees is what I meant.
That also came from the marina manager. We didn't set that budget.
But did you talk to any of the tenants that are paying the fees?
Well, when you have a wait list like that, and we're having to increase our staff at the marina, we have to offset some of that additional fee is reasonable when you compare it with wet slips outside of Sudden Valley. It's kind of we can do that's a reasonable amount. It's a conservative amount to increase it when we're talking about the additional expenses needed to take care of more wet slips. We need more staff also at the marina. We've had to use we're using a lot of our rec center staff to cover also. So during those busy times, that additional amount just helps to cover our maintenance and the additional staff time.
Right, Sonia, I'm not complaining about the increase in fee. I'm not complaining. What I'm interested is I've heard the word collaboration an awful lot. I tried to meet with, Bob Wolf and I tried to meet with the interim general manager several times this year, excuse me. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you had met with us, what we would have said is if we go out and look at the wet slips, the majority of the boat, all of the wet slips are 20-foot slips. if you look at the boats that are currently moored in them, they all have overhang. And when you mentioned that, comparing to other marinas, we are the only marina that does not charge for overhang. So what I'm wondering is if we were to say, okay, our overhang fee is X, based on the 20-foot slip, would that become your 10% increase? And Bob and I have been, we've given this for the last 2 years to staff. It hasn't been brought up, and my suggestion is that maybe what we could do is sit down and talk to the tenants and see what are ideas that they have in regard to this, because no one's tapped on my shoulder, and I don't know any tenant that has been consulted.
Well, Rob, Steffi Jones here. Maybe I could help you with this. That's why we have the budget meetings ahead of time. That's why we have the board email, all of these things that AJ so nicely listed out. I won't go back over because everyone's time is valuable. And what a novel idea. I wish that we could go and tap on your shoulder, but unfortunately we're not in that position. And that's why we're pleading and really begging people to get involved. So I did not know about your overhang fee idea. I apologize for that. I guess, we hope that there's some sort of reason or what have you. And have you tried asking the marina manager what they felt about your idea? Those are my suggestions. I just don't think that any corporation, whether it's run by volunteers or not, can find it feasible to go and interview their clients about a 10% increase. And, we may lose some people. They may be upset. I understand that. And that is something that we did look at. But again, no, we did not directly reach out to the client.
Steffi,
Thank
no
you.
need to apologize. Thank you, Steffi. No need to apologize. I'm not looking for an apology. It is a bit of frustration that that we weren't consulted. I think if we could have easily set a little round table down at the marina office. I know Andrea was consulted. We've brought this idea about overhang for a couple years now, and unfortunately maybe it didn't get to the new board.
Well, and that's why I'm apologizing, because it's nice to close the loop with people. And so I will just ask that gets done, because if they're not closing the loop, then you're kind of leaving and going, well, was it a good idea? Wasn't it a good idea? Are people listening or not? So, those are just little bugs that we have to work out. And to be quite honest, the culture was not of that until recently. So it's a change for people to get their head around. Yeah, we just want everyone to know everything.
Yeah.
So,
But I
no,
will
that's
say,
good.
I want to
Yeah,
be really
unfortunately.
clear.
Sorry.
Rob, I
go
want
ahead.
to be really clear though. I personally spent a lot of time speaking with Andrea. She's told me that she works with you guys. We've looked at the list. We do get feedback from community members that have boats down there. We get a lot of feedback, and we're very responsive to that feedback. And these changes that you see regarding the marina and the marina parking lot, and then trying to make the additional dry slips, all of that is in response to the feedback that came from the marina manager that you work with. And so we, like I said, we took the emails that we received from community members, and we took the manager's suggestions, and that's where this decision came in. So I like Debbie said, I'm sorry that you're concerned, but we've got another year. There's another survey. We can put this in front of long range planning and everything, but I just want to be really clear. We really took a lot of time on that one, because the marina is really important to the community. And I'm sorry that you don't feel heard, but we really made an effort. It just wasn't somewhere your thing got lost, but we definitely reached out multiple times to get feedback regarding the marina.
And we will close the loop on that ask. We will do that.
Can I-
I hope so, because I hope it's not who I am is why it's falling on deaf ears. I'll leave it like that.
Rob, can I ask well, one thing is we've struggled with the GMs, the last couple GMs, properly keeping the board informed on certain things. And so I was not aware, I met with the last interim GM weekly, and I was not aware that anyone sat down to talk with him on this issue. Could you maybe send the board or the executive committee an email and kind of maybe give us some documentation of how other wet slip areas that you have looked at utilize an overage a fee or things like that, so we have some documentation to work off of, so we can make some more educated decisions on things like that.
Absolutely, AJ, and I'd be happy to, if you guys would like to go benchmark some of that with me, I would be happy to do that with you. I need just a little bit of planning, because as you may know, I suffered a spinal cord injury, so transportation is something I need to arrange. So, thank
Okay.
you.
Well, yeah, if you could send us an email and kind of maybe give us some of the research that you've got on some of what other marinas utilize for fees in that capacity, so that we could, maybe establish something like that, or, see if that would be appropriate here in Sudden Valley. And then we can set up kind of a meeting to talk about that stuff then, after we can kind of look at some of that documentation.
Absolutely, AJ. And again, I'm not saying tenants shouldn't pay more. I'm just saying, could we be a little more creative and follow best practices? That's all. Thank you so much for your time.
We agree. We agree with that, Rob. We agree with that 100%. So
Best practices are always a good thing.
thank you.
That's why
Thank
they're
you.
called best practices, I guess.
Thank you all. Appreciate
Thanks,
you listening
Rob.
to me.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for your contribution. There is a question that popped up in the Q&A regarding fire safety related actions in the budget. Anybody able to speak to that?
Well, as I stated, we have, we're obviously continuing to implement our Firewise and Clean Green programs. We have money budgeted for hazard tree removal as well. And those are all, part of that discussion. I'm not exactly sure what your exact questions are related to that.
If anybody, if the person who asked that question or anybody else would like to jump in from the attendees, just use raise hand and I'll bring you over to the meeting. Also, it looks like we've got one person on a phone, *9 should do the same thing on a handset, on a phone, regular phone. No, I can bring you over, Jay White.
I know Judy did email the board about emergency exits for all gates or multiple entrance, at least multiple egress points. That is something the long range planning committee started talking about a couple meetings ago, to start kind of looking at that and figuring out what may or may not be able to be done in that regard.
Well, and the other aspect.
Hey, guys, sorry to interrupt, but John needs to bring Judy over so she can ask her questions.
I agree.
Okay, I'm bringing her on over. You should receive a request there, Judy.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay. All right. I'm going to have oh gosh, this is hard to hear. I'm hearing feedback. What do I do so that I don't hear myself?
Do you have us on YouTube as well?
Yes.
Okay, mute your YouTube.
I don't know how to do that. Oh, wait, there it is. Let me.
Oh, I think you muted your mic instead.
Okay, how do I do this? I'm
if-
sorry, I'm not used to Zoom.
How do you sound now? Do you still have the feedback?
I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, We can all hear you, so you can ask your question.
Okay. I will, but it's too hard. Okay. Okay.
Turn down the volume on your computer so that you're only hearing us on the phone. If you don't know how to mute it, there's a volume button.
I think she's on her computer. That's why it's getting
I'm on
muted.
I'm on my computer and can see you, but I'm on my phone so I can hear you. And I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, if you find a way to turn down your computer volume, if you can't mute YouTube, then you're just
Oh, sorry. Judy, if you're watching us on YouTube, if you shrink it down, it should cut the volume on it.
All right, I'll
Just
give
close
it.
YouTube.
Is that all right?
Yeah, you could close YouTube because you have us on the phone, and then you could just open back up YouTube. And John, if you make sure and not put her back over to panelist until she gets her question heard and
Sure.
answered. Thank you.
I don't understand. What do you want? Okay. Okay. All
We
right.
can all
Are we-
hear you.
We can hear you. There we go. In the meantime, if anybody else would like to jump in, there is a Q&A section at the bottom of Zoom that you should be able to contribute a question. Here we go. Question from C. Taylor. The Emergency Preparedness Committee has a $0 budget for 2022. What is happening with that committee? Is it continuing? Is there a committee report online?
The current committee has no chair, and the board has been dealing with the budget and that type of stuff at this point in time.
You know, I'd like to say something to that too. In addition to that emphasizes also why it's important that when you make a commitment to the board, you should actually not quit. You know, when you quit, those committees chairs did not fulfill their responsibilities. The members of the board that are here today do show up for the committees and fulfill their responsibilities, but ultimately this is a board that works full-time, and it's kind of unreasonable when committees are structured. These ad hoc committees exist to support the board and the needs of the board, not to support the committees and the wants of the members of those committees. So when this board has to go and reorganize the priorities based on the time that we have available and what we need to do, we recognize, number one, that as far as emergency preparedness, we're always going to defer to the experts, and we have, and that was proven also during the big heat wave. We work closely with the fire marshal, the fire chief. DNR comes out and patrols the areas in Upper Gate 5. There's a lot of, in my opinion, fear mongering going on regarding fire safety when it's just not the case. We're in constant contact with them. They come out here. If they advise us to do anything, we do it. Our security staff has the ability that if any vehicle is blocking the road, they can tow immediately. So there's a lot of like rumors going around that, you know, first of all, that we're not concerned with fire safety, or that there's no evacuation procedures or those types of things. If for any reason there is a fire in Sun Valley and an evacuation is needed, the fire department, there are evacuation plans in place. Our fire trucks and their trucks are all equipped with sirens. They're equipped with loudspeakers, and if necessary, they will go door to door to make sure that people are out. I've talked with them. I actually lived in probably the only place that had a fire that came near a house just a couple of years ago, and I can tell you that's exactly what happened. They went into basically what would be a 3-block radius of that fire, knocked on every single door in the middle of the night to make sure we were all aware that there was a fire. They spent 2 days on site checking it. So let's give these guys some credit and trust that they understand this community. We're in the Pacific Northwest. This isn't California. Fires and wildfires are treated in a different manner. And but just because a volunteer committee isn't, and it's an ad hoc committee, again, that's in place to support the board, it does not mean that somehow safety doesn't exist in this community. That's just not true. None of that's changed.
I'd like to add to that, and thank you, Sonia, for that. I just want to add to that to remind the community that we do not have a general manager. And that's not an excuse for things to have the appearance of not being taken care of, because they are. But I want to remind the community that we were down until the last board meeting, we were down 2 board members, and that the majority of this board works full time. And so expectations of responses as if the general manager is in place, or as if the board is sitting home waiting to answer things immediately, needs to be lowered for the time being until we get our general manager, which we are recruiting. We are working outside of working hours to try to meet the needs of this community, but there is a lot of transition that's going on right now, and that needs to be considered as we're working through this time of transition. And as Sonia said, there are still city and governmental entities in place that do act in the capacity of some of the concerns. So it is not solely up to the board and the general manager of Sutton Valley to answer some of these regulatory and safety issues. We do also have a city and county structure in place to handle some of these concerns. So if everyone can just take a deep breath and understand that there are things in place to handle this. And yes, things might be, we may not be on top of things or in front of things, but things are getting handled, and they are anticipated to get better as we finish our general manager recruitment processes, and as we've added 2 more board members to help share the load of the things that need to be taken care of in this community. And we thank you for your patience and understanding on all those things.
Hey, guys, Judy said she's ready for her questions now.
All right, I'll go ahead and bring her on over. Okay, Judy, we've got you back.
All right. Well, now I'm hearing myself again. Okay. Here's my thoughts. This summer, Mother Nature gave us all our wake-up call. Our HOA needs to be flexible in its actions and budgeting to reflect our new normal. What needs could be more important for our HOA to address than whatever it can do to protect the property and lives of our residents. Okay, so being warned of wildfire and evacuation, every one of our nearly 8,000 residents wants to be able to get out of the valley during an emergency. If there is a plan, we don't know what it is. We also need emergency exits to get out safely. We need to proactively and assertively deal with fireworks and other dangerous fire behavior in our community. And we need all of our property upgraded to firewise standards. All over Sutton Valley, residents have been removing dangerous trees, limbs, overgrown brush, weeds on their private property, and the HOA has supported that. But our HOA needs to do the same thing on all HOA property, especially the many undeveloped lots that have been converted to open space in every gate. These plans that have been developed and documented over the past years need to be updated and put into action now. because finally, for the first time ever, we have enough money to make it happen. I'm sad to see no specific evidence of any of those things in our budget, but there's plenty of wants, not needs. Rehabbing a barn, removing the foundation of barn 7, a sauna, life sidewalks. Those are all wonderful things, but they should be postponed so that we can use the money now for what we need before what we want. And I think it's time to take this exquisitely important opportunity to act on your words of needs before wants. And I'm not seeing that in this budget. Thank you.
Judy, thank you so much. This is Steffi Jones. I was hoping you could give me some examples, because I'm not seeing where we have the funds to just drop everything and do the lot clearing. We also don't have the staff. And this is from a homeowner point of view, because I'm not jumping into the maintenance budget and countering it. But what I'm seeing is a decreased level of staff. We have a limit on our bylaws.
Steffi,
But we don't have a decrease in staff. And
Well, not a decrease in staff, but a decrease in availability. I mean, we don't have that availability, I guess. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I have some things going on in the background. There's also, I mean, I guess I just need concrete examples.
What example would be the $275,000 into rehabbing an old barn? That could be postponed a few years.
so Judy,
It's not urgent.
Judy, if we postpone that, because it's been postponed for a very long time, then the result of that's going to be what? A $6 million new community center, or nothing for this community. The community on the survey very specifically, overwhelmingly said they want to keep that barn. They want to preserve and maintain that barn. That's the only piece of history that's still left in Sudden Valley. And that's the one thing across the board. 80% of the membership said they wanted to take care of, preserve and maintain that barn. That's a priority. The comments that you're stating, Sudden Valley has existed for 50 years. This all just came up. This thing about fire and everything just came up in the last couple of months. We are putting that on the long range planning committee. It's on their radar. There's another survey coming up, but you can't, when you do budgeting, we actually have to do work behind that budget. You just don't move numbers around like that. Everything, all of the decisions that we made were based on a lot of research and engineering reports, et cetera. And they were also based on what the community very, very clearly stated to us. The thing about clearing common space, there seems to be a misconception about what protects us from fire in the Pacific Northwest. But I can tell you, when you live in the upper gates, which I do, it's very important to have the understory there. You don't clear out under there. It's that wetness that is what's protecting us. I've actually had a lightning strike right next to my home. It burned out. That happens quite often. I realize we're at a dry period and we have to keep extra watch, but I'm telling you that the fire marshal, the fire chief, and the DNR regularly patrol when we have these high fire risk times. And they're the experts on this, and we are listening to them. We're following their advice. But the chances of 8,000 people getting trapped in this community with a wildfire without us having any notice is incredibly slim at this point, Judy. So we have to look at that budget and determine priorities based on that. Health and safety matter. They matter a lot, but there's a budget. And there's, if we keep kicking this can down the road and not taking care of even our plumbing needs where our employees work, that's a health and safety issue too. And I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I will. You know how plumbing was fixed in the clubhouse? It had garbage bags tied around it to catch the leaks. That's what we walked into, Judy. So do you want us to push that down the road, or do you want us to take care of it? Because that's a health and safety issue and it needs to be addressed.
Hey, guys, I'm just gonna take a moment here to address one other thing that Judy was bringing up. And Judy, I completely agree with you on the fireworks. I believe last time we voted on that to have them at the marina, we voted against it. And, you know, I don't want to be the all king of Sudden Valley and make the decisions about people's fireworks for them. It was a really tough vote because, you know, we get hit both ways politically on that type of one. But I agree that they are dangerous, and we're going to put some other efforts into making sure that the community knows the repercussions of lighting fireworks and during 4th of July. And we're going to start that with New Year's. So just wanted to let you know that I've taken your thoughts into consideration, and we're going to try to make sure that we implement better notifications and stronger notifications moving forward.
I'm glad to
It's
hear
also
that part.
Right. And it's also important to know that we don't have legal jurisdiction. I mean, that some of these things need to be deferred to the proper authorities. People tend to think that the HOA does have a jurisdiction, but when it comes down to it, I mean, we would have to alert the authorities. So, you know, just keeping that in mind, and everyone can be diligent about reporting that. We do. And I just want to say, I don't care for the fireworks down at the marina because that's our water. And that really kind of freaks me out how much we abuse that lake. So those are just my 2 cents on that.
Judy, I just
Small
want to.
points I would just,
Oh,
2 small points I would just like to mention. One is that we need to deal with those HOA lots. I look out my window, I see one lot. I live on a street with 5 houses, very short street. 2 of the lots here on this street, in addition, are HOA owned. One has got weeds about 3 feet tall that haven't been addressed, though they had in years past. The other one on the other side is filled with dead trees, brush, junk, high weeds, overgrown bushes. And the Firewise people say that's a danger. And that's something I don't see addressed in the budget. The other issue is the emergency exits. I'm talking about something really simple, a short graded dirt connection with maybe a one-way bike strip and a couple of emergency exits only signs to prevent incoming traffic. That could be completed before next summer. That would go a long way to help the people in this community who are very anxious. And I'm not the only one by far, because I know you've been hearing from other people as well, that we would like something handled now in place of things like a sauna or sidewalks or removing the Barn 7 foundation. There's plenty of ways to find money to start. Thank you.
Just to be clear on the emergency exit thing, it's not just a simple, slap a dirt road in. Like, you know, there has to be some planning involved in that. Do we have the access? If we don't, do we need easements? Will the county approve that access point onto the county road? That's their jurisdiction. They get to decide that, not us. You know, stormwater treatment comes with creating additional impervious surfaces. You know, so there's all these things that have to be looked at and determined where the appropriate places could be, where the county would allow us to put those types of things. You know, and so, you know, again, it's, you know, we have to defer to some of the professionals regarding that stuff. You know, we will need to coordinate with the county on those things, get some buy-in on that type of thing. It will take some time to do that work, you know, and like, and just to continue on the, like, you know, we need to listen to the professionals that we have at our disposal, like with the fireworks thing. You know, we coordinated with the fire chief, with our security staff to put a plan in place to address, you know, the concerns that they felt we needed to address with regards to patrolling for fireworks and dealing with phone calls that would come in regarding that type of stuff. You know, we got, I think, 22 phone calls to security over the 4th of July holiday, and the fire department, the local fire chief got 0 calls regarding fireworks. You know, and as far as like wildfire notification and information and that type of stuff, you know, it's, again, we do need to defer to the professionals on this stuff. Like the DNR is the one in charge of dealing with wildfires in our state. You know, their website, they have an information on wildfire page, you know, discuss communicating wildfire information. You know, it says DNR and our wildfire response partners work to ensure you receive accurate information as quickly as possible. They have Twitter accounts that you can follow. They have text message alerts that you can sign up for. And it even specifically says local emergency management offices such as sheriff departments and local fire districts order and communicate evacuations when needed and other emergency activities outside of the work to combat wildfires. You know, so they are responsible for ensuring that the community would be notified, you know, in response to those types of things. If we have concerns that that's not being addressed, then we need to write the DNR. We need to write our local fire department and ask, you know, for like evacuation stuff. You know, I work in public works. I realize I hear a lot of times people is like, oh, there's only 2 exit points or whatever, and like those can't feed the 8,000 residents to evacuate. That's not actually true. They're, you know, Lakeway, Cable Street are 4-lane roads, and in the event of evacuation, there'd be fire marshals, fire department, sheriffs directing traffic, utilizing 4 lanes in one direction to get people where they need to go to get out of here. You know, and the same thing goes, I mean, Geneva is surrounded by forests and Galbraith too. All these people are in the same boat as us. Like, you know, so we should write our council members, the county executive, and we should request that those types of plans be more readily available, or that they provide education to the communities that would need to utilize those plans moving forward. You know, we do need to put an onus on the local jurisdictions that are responsible for supporting these various things so that they do that. You know, if we never ask, then they'll, you know, they'll take the assumption that they feel like everything is fine and in place. So we need to make sure, you know, community members can write our council members, the executive, you know, and all that type of stuff. The board can do that type of work too, you know, so we need to, you know, we need to collaborate with those partners.
Thank you, AJ. I agree with what you've said. And that's my point. I'm only going to say one more sentence, that's what we want, is to planning and doing an action to start now and to be made a priority, and any needed funding needs to be in this budget or nothing will happen. Thank you.
Well, executing a plan and stuff all needs to be, you know, the Whatcom County Public Works and Whatcom County government needs to, you know, put that together and execute a plan with us. Like the HOA can't do that in a vacuum because it doesn't just include us. There's lots of people that live on Lake Whatcom Boulevard, in Geneva, etc. It's a regional thing. It's not just an HOA thing. So, you know, we do, you know, I suggest that you write, you know, you've written us a couple emails. I suggest you write an email to the council and the executive as well, asking for, you know, some of these things too.
think a good point to make, not to Judy, but to anyone who's concerned, because I think the temperature out there on the internet, and I've only been on there a little bit, but the temperature is that, oh, it's dry, the fireworks came when it was dry and now it's dry again. And yeah, it is. People do get a little bit worried. And then, there is a bit of fear mongering on the internet right now. So it's easy to get caught up in that rather than reaching out and seeking clarification. Whatever information is being disseminated isn't maybe what's happening, just like AJ said, write an email, seek clarification, and then hopefully people can appreciate the limits and the boundaries we have here as an HOA.
And if I could add to that, Sonia's hands been up. If I could just add to that, if people can just remember that budgets don't react immediately. If I can just reemphasize the fact of making data-driven decisions, not having a concern come up and then say, okay, well, we're going to switch the budget. And also the collaboration with all the multiple stakeholders in our community. We live in an HOA, and that HOA is in a county, and that county is in a region. And so we don't have the ability to react swiftly to things. It does require planning. It does require collaborating with those multiple agencies. And so we have to keep that in mind. And those agencies, like the fire district, do have plans for us. So it's not just resting all on the board of the HOA. We are in a community and there are plans in place. And we do need to collaborate with multiple stakeholders.
Since planning and collaboration needs to be done, I agree, then please start the process and let us know what you're doing. Because right now, nobody knows how they're going to be notified, what's going to happen for evacuation.
The responsibility of that stuff falls on those agencies, though, Judy. That's what we're saying. It's not the board. The board is just one part. Those agencies need to be contacted. If you have those concerns, their plans are theirs. They're not ours. We're just a part of their greater plan. And so that needs to be addressed through them, so that we, because we as the board are not fire, experts. We're not evacuation experts. Like, that's not our role here. We don't want a bunch of volunteers planning things that they're not, supposed to be planning, and that's not appropriate for them to be planning. We want to rely on those professionals to do that, and they have those plans. Maybe they're not adequately providing them, to certain community member standards, and that's where I say we need to write those elected officials, write Public Works, write whoever it is. I would start with your elected officials. That's the best place to start.
Hey, Sonia, sorry, hold on really quick. I'm going to go out on a dry limb here and say that we're missing Judy's point here. I
hear her point. That's what.
Wait, hold on. She wants our support, and I would gladly write these, these entities, but, I think that's something that we all can do.
So what I wanted to say, two things, is that there actually is an evacuation. It used to be on the website. Hey, that's what I was trying to get to. I actually looked. I thought there is an evacuation plan that exists for Sudden Valley. The Emergency Planning Committee, when it was part of Long Range Planning before we spun it off, it created a comprehensive emergency evacuation plan working with the fire chiefs. So it's not on the website. I thought it was. That's what I was going to refer you to. So we'll get that back up. And then I will also, because I hear what she's saying too. That's why I was trying to say that. I hear what you're asking for, Judy, and it does exist. And so we need to just get it back on that website so you can find it. I don't know when it fell off, and then I will talk to the fire chief and review it and make sure that that's still current and accurate, and we'll make sure that the most current information is on there. I can ask him to also contribute and write a letter and give some of those assurances that you're looking for. So I hear what you're saying and hear what you're asking for, but those plans actually exist. You just want them more readily available, and we can make that happen. The other thing I just want to address is you're concerned about the green space, the SVCA lots. We're really limited with what we can do with those lots without the county permission, because we can't move vegetation on those lots, and we can't mess with the canopy cover. However, a couple of years ago, and I can revisit this with the watershed manager, but a couple of years ago, I actually had talked with Waco Planning over the same issues that you're talking about, because it's just it's unsightly for one thing, and so at the time what they had offered was, perhaps since every area has different taste and concerns, et cetera, that perhaps we could create small little neighborhood groups that would be willing to volunteer and coordinate. The county at the time had offered their biologists to work with us to be able to, if we took any alders down or anything like that, that they would ensure that we were replacing them with the right type of shrubbery or other trees that would give us the same canopy cover. Again, that's one of those things that I'm happy to go back to them and see if they are still willing to do that. And maybe that's a program that you can help, get those volunteers together in the different gates to start working on their little neighborhood green spaces. But we have to work very close with the county, and we have to have permitting. We have to have permitting just to clean the sides of the roads. We have to have approval from the county to mow and clean the vegetation just on our right of way. So to walk over into those green spaces that are meant to be conservation areas, we actually have to work with the county on that too. But again, I can reach out to them and see what's available to us. Okay.
Thank you. Every single thing that anybody can do will help. I appreciate it.
Good, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Hey, I wanted to make one point, because Judy said the weeds were tall. Right now, when it's dry, don't actually cut down your weeds, because then they fall and they dry out. The root system keeps them a little bit wet, and then they are a fire damage. That's why you don't see any weed trimming along the highways right now. Just FYI. Sorry.
Thanks, Steffi. I didn't know that.
Hey, one other thing out of turn here. Are we going to have time for director questions?
Yeah, anyone can ask. We're all community members here.
Okay.
I don't.
Keith McLean, it's your time to shine.
Okay, hey guys, I saw there was someone else in the Q&A. I didn't know if we want to let the community go first. Is that someone else, John, there?
Yeah, it's just somebody expressing their appreciation for the hard work that the board does.
Oh,
So,
awesome. Maybe we do need to hear that.
Thank you, Connie.
Yeah, okay. I had a couple quick questions. A couple of these are for Joel. Joel, you mentioned in the financial summary that there's like 450 plus vacant lots. And are any of those owned by Sudden Valley, or are those all real estate owned and developable lots?
Well, we do own lots, but it's not listed in that 453 vacant lot thing. The lots that we own are green spaced out. So that 453, those are billable lots to billable lot owners.
Perfect. I was just wondering that. And then another question I had, we could talk about in your budget there for next year's budget, any union increases or costs that we might incur as an HOA in that?
Well, at this point, all of that is still in discussions with attorneys, and we don't know, like those numbers. Like, as Kim said, since the budget's all data driven, we can't just make assumptions off of numbers we don't know, so.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, and then now I'm going to go to AJ. I had one regarding the dog park. I heard you mention that we're going to put a fence separating the dog park, which is really cool. I've heard a lot of people complain about that. The other question I had, are they going to change how much allocation the dogs have of Lake Whatcom, the beachfront, versus people? Like, right now it's like 75% dog, that, where it's fenced off, or not fenced off, but there's a sign for dogs off leash, right? It's about 75% of that beachfront and about 25% left for the people. And as you know, like our weekends, we get a lot of people and they're all crammed in one little area. And so I didn't know who decides where the fence is going to go and things like that.
I don't know if that's really a budget question, you guys. I am taking time
Last year's
out of work.
board, I would have to
Okay.
go back and grab the policy that the last year's board approved, and it's outlined in there where the delineation of the boundary would go and stuff like that. But I don't know off the top of my head right now, but we can find that information. And
Okay,
it was all like, there was already a plan put together, and they updated the Marina Dog Park policy or whatever from, yesteryears to reflect the new one. I'm not sure if that ever got put on the website or not, or what, but
But we're not replanning anything. There were a lot of meetings with dog owners that use the dog park and the Parks and Trail Committee. And so that, and if I understand correctly, they also went to the county at one point regarding this. So we're not altering that plan. It's just we're implementing it, right?
Okay, yeah, and I just received a thing that we should stick to budget items, so sorry about that.
No,
guys.
That's okay. That was to everyone.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
don't
a
worry.
budget item. It's on the budget.
It's a boundary, you guys.
It's a budgeted item, though.
Okay, well, then one other thing, it is on the budget, I guess, is removal of the pad at next to barn 7 and the dance barn or whatnot. I heard in prior years past that if we remove that pad and we didn't have an option to rebuild within a certain amount of time, we would lose that option. Is that still an issue that we know about?
we've already lost that option at this point in time. That pad wasn't what was conditional of the ability to rebuild there. The building is what was. Basically my understanding at this point is that deadline has passed now. And so, the ability to build within the buffer of the creek there is, on that pad is no longer. Now that whole pad isn't covered by the buffer of the creek, but I think it does take up a fair chunk of it.
Okay. And then, one other, this could be a good budget item. Have we talked about the possibility of charging, weekends, we do get overran down at the marina. There's like no parking. AMP and Beach gets overran, and they're trying to create additional parking spaces. Is there a possibility that we somehow charge the public that's coming in here for parking or anything like that? I mean, I don't know how hard of a concept that is, but, what all would entail.
So this does go back to Steffi's point of sticking with what's on the current budget, but absolutely you can send that to the long range planning committee. And if you can go lrpc@suddenvalley.com.
Yeah.
And we've got the survey coming up. The long range planning is going to confirm these last survey questions, these types of things that you're bringing up. So that's where I would point that question. Because it's not in this planning process right now.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you giving me your time.
We also have a situation too, to where we're a non-taxable entity. So as a condition with that, we can't really discriminate, so to speak, like non-Sudden Valley people versus Sudden Valley people for something like that with the marina.
You're not allowed to distinguish them, or just coming up with a system to distinguish?
Well, it's just in the tax, since we're a nonprofit tax entity, it's like, we're a 501c4, which is for the public social good, so to speak. So, so I don't believe that we can just, level a fee against a non-Sun Valley person for parking, like basically our amenities have to be open also to people outside of Sudden Valley.
Or
Yeah,
you-
I get that, but Sudden Valley is picking up the expense for it. That's why I was just curious if there was a way to kind of offset that, because I know our maintenance crew is obviously picking up everything. We're emptying trash, cleaning the restroom facilities and so forth. I just didn't know if that was a possibility or we get offset by the county in some way.
What he
Well,
said-
we'd have to coordinate with our legal
Can't do-
counsel on
can't
some of
do
that stuff.
So, yeah,
We can't do that. We'd have to charge everybody.
you could include it in our dues. All right,
Well,
well, thanks. guys.
again, I think it's as definitely we can defer that to long range planning because it sounds like it's a complicated conversation. So yeah, we can absolutely get the answers. How about that?
And I just want to emphasize again, a lot of the ideas, I know it's challenging, but a lot of the ideas we have, and I've encountered this too, is that we are regulated by laws. We are regulated by laws for our bylaws, by the county. And so sometimes things sound like a great idea, but then it can't legally be done. So we need to keep reminding ourselves that we live in an area where there are multiple stakeholders and multiple bylaws and rules and laws that we have to adhere to. So that's something to keep in mind.
Linda, you got your hand up?
Oh, I do, and I'm gonna send something. I've got questions, some other questions, but this just deals with the operation budget. So I'm looking at the page that has to do with that collection rate from 2022 to 2026. I didn't realize until Joel brought it up that the PRT is running at a deficit this year. I had thought that that was balanced, but it's not. And I realize this is for the future, not for this year, but there's this whole thing where it shows that our dues can stay flat and still, by moving, what is it, $12.13 per year to fund that. I guess I'm curious, where are the overages that are kicking them into being unbalanced, that they're operating at a deficit? Because like right now, there's this huge special assessment. I know we have a surplus in there from prior years, and I don't know if so far into 2021. And I'm just curious why we're running deficits if we have these dues that can be paying for these expenses.
Muted, Joel.
Yeah, so the rec special assessment does go to finance Rex Parks pools, but that doesn't mean it's going to completely in any one year cover all of those expenses. So that 11,000 is basically what you're just seeing is you're seeing a slight overage in that year. Now, in terms of like, how much do we have in a sense like equity in parks, pools, rec, so to speak? It's like off the top of my head, I'd have to look it up, but off the top of my head, it's about $50,000. But that's kind of more of a technical accounting question, meaning like just because we have that equity, we're not going to take that and we can't put that on the income statement as beginning equity, so to speak. So it's like it's separate from that.
I'm just curious if we have all this money in fees, and I'm not sure where we're at for 2021 because it's not done yet, but that hopefully we're collecting enough to fully fund that, because in theory, the special assessment was worded that it would cover those costs, not that you'd be spending additional money from your dues to support that. And right now that might be just fine for us, but there's some real unknowns coming even in 2022 and forward, that I think should be addressed. And like I say, when you made that statement, that's what triggered my question, because I thought it was a balanced budget.
It is a balanced budget for the entire operational budget as a whole. But in
I know,
terms of-
but
in
I'm
terms-
just saying, like, the marina's doing fine, golf is doing fine. We've got the special assessment that's supposed to cover the costs of park recs and trails, and they're operating at a deficit. That's my point.
The big difference between marina and golf is those two are heavy revenue centers as well. So in terms of recs, parks, pools, the rec special assessment, see what we budgeted in terms of this is what we think it'll be. So if the rec special assessment can't cover it, then it just can't cover it in that particular year. So that's why you see the deficit.
And the budget is just a planning document at
Right.
the end of the day too. Like adjustments get made throughout the year to accommodate those things. And I think one thing to keep in mind, this highlights the point of why we don't want special assessments to cover operations funds or a special assessment like the culverts, vegetations, like that money doesn't actually cover, it was purported to the community to cover those specific things. And at the end of the day, it can't. Like, I'm not saying that the rec special assessment is in that same boat necessarily, but like the 2016 SGM for culverts was supposed to fund full-time maintenance person, these other positions, these other work, and it just can't actually cover all of that stuff. Like, and that's, it is what it is. It's what the board at that time presented to the community, and they approved it, and it's not the community's fault. Like that's what happened, but that's the reality of it, and like some of that stuff, needs to be cleaned up. And it puts boxes around money that doesn't allow us to adequately budget properly. Like,
Well, I understand that. It's just when and I noticed like there's a reduction in the pool's anticipated income. I can't believe, and I know they didn't have any in 2020, but that's because the pool was, we couldn't operate it. But it's like, there's some of this stuff, and I just wonder, I'm just concerned that, for right now, it might be enough, but in that one scenario you have of being able to keep dues flat, that's wonderful, don't get me wrong. But then when I hear this, it's kind of like, well, how long is it going to do that? And how long, what are we going to do when how does it work when the assessment ends the middle of 2023? And that'll be for a board to decide where any
you're getting into
excesses-
future multiple years out budgets that, are not part of this budget.
Oh, I understand that. I'm just saying that, and normally I wouldn't say that, but that magic little sheet's in there, AJ. That's why, why I'm saying when you give that to people to look at, and then Joel says, but we're gonna have to spend more money, then you look at those hypothetical situations you've placed before the membership. That's all.
Well,
That stuff has to be planned too, like use fees could be introduced again to cover, costs. Like there's, a next year's board will have to start to do that planning work, so that we're ready to implement.
what that
something.
does is that's a realistic number that if all things stayed exactly the same and you budgeted it that way, those dues will stay flat, and they will 100% stay flat. But that does not mean that that's what a board is going to determine that's the way to do it. But that's saying if you bring those expenses that we currently cover into operations, that's what it'll look like. But again, we're budgeting for 2022.
Yeah, I
not
understand
budgeting
that.
for
That's why
2023.
sometimes I don't like these projections put in there, because as you point out, the only thing that you can speak to is 2022.
Well, what we
But when
can
Joel
Not
said-
really. I mean,
Well-
we're still planning. You still have to plan for future years. Like, it's not like it's just being ignored. It just, the final plan gets developed on a yearly basis. Like, but the board as a whole is not adhering to its fiduciary responsibilities if it's only looking 1 year at a time. Like you still have to think about these things. Staff still has to think about these things. Like you can't just be in a 1-year vacuum all the time. Like, like, yes, the board has a responsibility of its yearly budget and that's it. But there's long range planning committee. There's these other committees. They're doing work that looks at things forward thinking, and staff is consistent, in that they're always thinking about the future, of the association and stuff like that. Joel is sitting here. He's not just looking at a yearly basis. He's thinking out into the future as well, too. So would a GM, and any of our management level staff.
And one of the things that we've been really focused on when AJ uses the word sustainability and fiscal responsibility, which is what this board is all about, is ensuring that our operations is not at the mercy of politics. And so we should never wake up every year and go, I wonder if the pools are going to open. And because our amenities have been used as a political tool, I think, for the entire 50 years that Sudden Valley has existed. And our employees deserve better than to wonder if they're going to have a job because they're paid out of a special assessment. It's inappropriate to budget that way. It's irresponsible to budget that way. And we need to make sure that we have the bylaws and the policies that ensure that that sort of thing moving forward doesn't happen. Because as AJ said, we've got this money, we've got all these little boxes around this money that makes it very difficult to do things we need to do to support our employees the way they need to be supported, because we can't make decisions appropriately. But what we're trying to do is honor the intent of the community that supported those SGMs and everything. But we do have to find a better way to hear what the community is saying while being fiscally responsible and ensuring that our operations, we have enough money in the operations to support our community the way that we want it to be supported.
That's correct. And I understand what you're saying. But once again, even by putting this into, and I know we're talking into the future, increase by, you're continuing to put that box around that money. Can't change that.
No. I mean, that
I
still allows the
saying.
flexibility to adjust things as needed when it's not boxed by a special assessment.
Then hopefully when you make these changes in the next years, you're not going to have a statement like your regular operational dues are going to be increased by ... to pay for ... because that's exactly what it says in there right now. You can't deny that.
Doesn't say that.
I beg your pardon. It says monthly will be increased $12.13 per month to cover the operational expenses associated with the pools, parks, trails, and fitness center after the recreational special assessment expires at the end. I'm looking at an old one of the end of May 2023. So
Yeah,
yes, it does say
that money gets pulled into the operations budget instead of a special assessment, but it's not boxed any longer like that. It has to be spent in a specific way. If we had the need for, additional funding or less funding for recs, it still would allow that flexibility to do that.
But that isn't what's written there.
It's
You know,
just
you-
saying
Okay,
that
so
that
we
money
can
is being
change
moved
the-
into the operations budget,
I'm
not
just
that
saying,
it's got a
if
box
you put
around
it
it.
in
She
there,
wants it to
you're gonna have-
specify that it's saying it's an assumption. It's just, we're explaining it. We're not
I
writing this in
understand what you're
stone.
saying, but I'm saying if this gets put in another budget, then you have continued to box that money.
No, you're not boxing it,
You've
but it's,
budgeted the money,
but,
not boxed it.
but it's fine we can change the wording though, Linda, to
Thank you. I
explain.
think
Yeah.
that would be a good thing to do, or you, because I'm just going by what's written here. I'll send my other questions to the board. I have some other things, but it has to do with some of the capital. So I'm done for now.
I say we just do whatever Joel Heverling says.
He's the one that wrote it that way.
I say it's good enough. We just leave it. Keep in mind, Linda, too, like even if $11,000 at the end of the day really is not that much money. Like if the collection rate were different by 1%, there's like another $25,000. I mean, not exactly from obviously with rec, but as operations as a whole. So at the end of the day, it's not really a barn burning amount of money.
That's if we collect above. Are we collecting above this year in our 95%?
We're on target this year to hit what we hit last year, which was 95.5%. So our collection rate is, but we're not talking about this year, we're talking about next year. And next year is we're budgeting for a 93% collection rate. You see?
I understand that,
So
but you're saying.
now
if
you're
we
talking an
collect-
additional over $50,000 that could come in right there.
And let's point out that no one on this board wanted a 95% collection rate last year.
AJ, I totally agree. It's just sometimes.
I
there's
brought
this
that up
whole-
at least
Yes,
4 or
you
5
did.
times.
Yes, you did.
But I mean, it becomes it actually becomes more striking next year since you're budgeting for 93%. And then if you do come in at 95.5%, now you're talking like over $50,000 of additional, to like 60 or so $1,000 of additional operational revenue coming in, which makes that $11,000 from rec look like it's not even worth worrying about.
That's fine, but it's just, it's hypothetical now, isn't it? Right now, in this point.
No,
in
it's
time,
not actually
It's
hypothetical.
a hypothetical.
No, that's an actual reality. That's what could happen. You have to go back quite a few years to find a year where we didn't come in at that. It's very
That's true, but
realistic.
it's because we were at a lower collection rate. An actual lower collection rate all those years. And then that does make a difference. You know, if you do come in, yes, you do benefit from that. If you go in high and you come in low.
We didn't budget like that,
But that's
Linda.
not what
We
we're doing.
budgeted at 93% collection
Oh,
rate.
yeah, I
at a
understand that. I'm
conservative
talking
amount.
about this year. And the fact that Joel, hypothetically, he goes, if you bring in extra, and I'm pointing out this year, we haven't even reached 95% yet, unless y'all know something I don't.
Okay, well then if we talk about
We're
this,
0.5% short according to Joel as of the end of July. So we're trending pretty much on point.
Long
And
as
also, is it, I mean, if we're comparing this year to next year, we're trying to focus on next year. So if we could minimize the philosophical questions and actually deal with questions for next year's budget so that we can move the meeting along, that would be greatly appreciated.
Oh, sure, I'm all done. I'll send my questions to Joel and you guys, the rest that I have. This was the only thing I had that had to do with operations.
Linda, you should be on the beach.
Huh?
You should be on the beach right now.
Absolutely. The sun is shining. The wind is not too bad right now.
I don't want to hear it. So mad at you.
Do we have any other community member questions?
The only thing that came up was a Q&A inquiry about the parks, how they charge for parking.
Yeah. I
that was-
think my answer to Cheryl is we have planning to do on that. You know, legal counsel needs to advise us on what may or may not be able to be done. It's, you know, a bit more complicated than just charging people. And then there's the whole enforcement aspect of it and what's the cost associated with that. And are we even materializing any revenue or benefit from it if we have to spend more money to enforce it than we bring in? So there, you know, I think long range planning needs to look at that type of thing as and do the work and find the details on whether it's possible. And if it's practical and feasible.
Well, other than that, I'm not seeing any more hands or any more comments.
All right. Well, I think maybe we call it a day then on this meeting. I'd like to again thank everyone for being here today. Thank all the community members for the good dialogue that we had and the questions that they brought forward. I think it's important that, you know, we be able to have that. And, you know, this type of meeting provides a little bit more opportunity for that than your standard board meetings and stuff do, or emails do. And I think that, yeah, at this point in time,
AJ,
what's up,
would you
Linda?
tell the people about the community survey that you guys are proposing for the new general manager? Please, would you make an announcement?
Oh yeah, we do. We announced this at the last board meeting a few days ago, but we have a survey on the homepage of the website to gather input from community and staff members regarding the recruitment process and what we'd like to see in our next general manager. So please take the time to do the survey. It'll be open until the end of the day on Sunday, the 22nd. And then, yeah, it'll be helpful for helping the board make decisions on who we bring in as the next general manager. Other than that, thank you to Joel for going through everything. Thank you for John for hosting. Thank you, Brian, for coming and giving us an update on the golf revenues and everything like that. And thank you to everyone that helped diligently work on getting this budget put together. I think at this point in time, it's time to go enjoy the rest of our day and try to enjoy the little bit of sunshine that's coming through the haze.
Hey, and thanks to the community members who hung in there, and thanks for your questions. They really do matter. And so, and we'll follow up on everything that we discussed. So thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.